Welcome to G5 Classified, your one-stop shop for all things Group of 5 college football. Stepping up to the microphone are your hosts, Gabe Kuhn and Kyron Samuels. Now, let's talk some G5 football.
Yes, sir. What's up, everybody? We're in episode 10 of the G5 Classified podcast. Gabe Kuhn, Kyron Samuels with you. We have a loaded show for you today. We're going to talk about our big stories. We're going to get into all that, winners, losers, G5 game of the week, G5 check-in. But I will tell you, I'm very excited for our guest today. Second segment, it'll come to you. Miami of Ohio head coach Chuck Martin will be joining us live from Oxford, Ohio. How about that? And he is he's a notable hater of technology, Kai. So I wonder if, joining into the pod, virtually, how that's going to work. But we'll walk him through it on the way. But Kai, what's happening, brother?
What's happening, man? Happy to talk some ball this weekend. We had an eventful one. This one, I really enjoyed this one because the Texas A&M game, which we'll talk about, was one of my favorite games of the whole football season. So I'm excited to get into the slate this week.
Yeah, but I have to say something off top, brother, about your alma mater. I don't care if we're recording or not, and if this is unprofessional or not. We're at halftime right now in the Jacksonville State Liberty game, and Rich Rod is the biggest sicko in college football, dog.
Yeah, he's insane.
I'm sorry. 248 yards of offense, 15 yards passing, only 3 attempts in the first half. You love it. You love it. Run the rock enthusiast.
They run for over 1,100 yards the last 4 games. So they're on some crazy streak right now. They have like 21 rushing touchdowns in the last 4 games. You add another 2 tonight. It's been unprecedented. It's pretty impressive to see.
Yeah, and we'll talk about those frauds, Liberty, here in just a moment as we get to the later portions of the show today or tonight. But happy Halloween to folks out there, by the way. You got any plans?
Nah, I'm not a big Halloween guy. My wife is. She loves it, but we probably won't be doing too much. I'll leave some candy on the front porch for the kids and then turn the light off and let them get what they want, and that'll be my Halloween.
Yeah, do you have like an active neighborhood trick-or-treating wise?
Not necessarily. I mean, a couple. It's more of an older neighborhood, but my plan is I've never seen Halloween Town or Hocus Pocus, so I'm going to watch both of those sometime this week.
You haven't seen Hocus Pocus for real?
And I was a big Disney
I'm not
kid,
saying like it's like elite, but I feel like everybody's seen Hocus Pocus.
But no, I'm excited to watch it because everybody's talks about it. Hocus Pocus, Halloween Town. So I'm excited to finally watch those.
Yeah, you need to rate my. Me and my wife put together some costumes. I'm gonna be. You've seen Monsters Inc. I'm gonna be Sully, and she's gonna be Mike Wazowski. But she's like, because she's pregnant. She's 8 months pregnant at this point. Her belly's gonna be the eye of Mike Wazowski.
That's
a good, solid idea. I mean, I don't know.
A great idea. I like that.
Okay, I see. I thought I was the one who invented that. She liked it. That's like the first time ever I got to plan our costumes for the year. All right, now let's get into it. A&M is at the top of the SEC. Oh, by the way, the scroller's going along. Gabe's costume's least surprising ever. Yeah, so it kind of makes sense. Big monster, big hairy dude. Yeah, makes sense. But A&M is at the top of the SEC after beating LSU. Number 14 versus number 18. A&M moves up to number 10 in the country. They're undefeated still in Southeastern Conference play. They won 38-23. And the first half was a little rough for them, but in the second half, they made their adjustment, brought in Marcel Reed, who just made that offense work and made that offense go. I was impressed with A&M, but I will say this, and I would be remiss if I didn't say this. I do hate the fact that we have to have A&M, the A&M cult, on top of the world for a couple of weeks. No one likes the A&M fans. No one likes seeing A&M in this type of position of power in the SEC.
No, it's definitely the cult fam. They're close to the top of that list. But one thing I'm excited about is Mike Elko. I think he's done a fantastic job. And I wasn't critical of the hire in the sense that I didn't like Mike Elko. I love Mike Elko. I just didn't think it was that big of a differentiation from him and a guy like Mark Stoops, who they were allegedly originally contracted to, but then that fell through, and then they got Mike Elko. So I'm excited for him to be doing this well. People talk about some of the talent that they lost, but they got some talent in the transfer portal as well. They got some guys that they retooled. They were able to get some guys in the secondary. They were already loaded at defensive line. They lost Walter Nolan, but you still have Shamar Turner, Shamar Stewart, and those guys up front. You get a guy like Nick Scourton. I don't know if I'm butchering his last name, but you get
Scourton. That's right.
Yeah, you get a guy like that from Purdue. They have an extremely talented front. They probably upgraded from last year, if we're going to be 100% honest about it. So they're a damn good team top to bottom. And this is something that I was like really not taken aback by, in the sense that when they put Marcel Reed in the game, the offense flipped. He's a guy that I thought should have kept the job after Connor Rodman came back anyway. And I know Connor Rodman and those guys came back and had a very good game against Missouri, but that game wasn't won because of Connor Rodman. He made some nice throws here and there.
And that's the only game. That's his only game that he played even remotely well.
Yep, and the defense was fantastic. Special teams was fantastic. So they did a ton of good things all around in that ball game. And I think the Connor Weigman hype, kind of got justified. Like, okay, he's back. They're winning again. To me, that wasn't the case. So I wasn't surprised to see Marcel Green get in there and then dominate when he had his opportunity. And that was funny because we'll talk about it a little bit later. But the whole momentum is not real thing was a discussion all week leading up into the weekend. And then you get into the game against LSU and Texas A&M, and you see the definition of momentum flipping on your screen. As soon as Marcel Reed came into the game, then Nussmeier threw that pick, and it was an avalanche from there. You really saw Texas A&M take over the game. So that is momentum flipping on display, and I was excited to see that.
No, obviously, I think that A&M needs to stick with Marcel Reed. I think that's obvious. And honestly, it should have been obvious after he went 3-0 as a starter, because also you need to look at their staff and who they have employed on the offensive side of the ball. Their OC is Colin Klein. Colin Klein played at Kansas State back in the day, and the offense that is being run with Marcel Reed is very similar to what Colin Klein was used to at Kansas State, if you'll remember how he played. Dude ran for 1,000 yards, threw for about 2,300 his last couple of years, was the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year at Kansas State. He knows how to scheme up and help a dual threat quarterback in those types of situations. The one thing I will say is down the stretch of the season, when you get into these tough matchups, if, let's say, some team cuts off the water from that run game where, you cut off Amari Daniels, Le'Veon Moss, they're not letting the run game get going with Marcel Reed. Can Marcel Reed make those extra throws? I'm not saying he can't.
Right.
I'm saying I haven't seen it yet. And that's the only situation or scenario where I could see Mike Elko maybe thinking twice about making a switch about, back to Connor Weigman, because he is a guy who can throw from the pocket if you need him to. But again, I don't think Marcel Reed's out of that conversation. He was 2 for 2 for 70 yards in this game. It's just I haven't seen him do it yet, and he's still a young player.
100%. And that's the thing, that they have a little bit of a litmus test this weekend against South Carolina, which is a fantastic defense, particularly up front, where they're going to get tested, and maybe they can slow down their run game a little bit and make him have to make throws to beat them. So I think we're going to see that, especially on the road. People don't really know. I think people who love college football know, but it's a tough place to go play at Williams-Brice, man. It's going to be loud. They're going to be excited. That's a good football team, very well coached. So I'm excited to see that game this weekend, because I'm not saying that Texas A&M is going to lose that game, but they are going to get tested in a way they haven't been tested in a while in the trenches, I believe.
Yeah, and Marcel Reed's probably going to have to throw it a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll see. I think we'll get a little bit of a look at that. Obviously, I still think they keep it balanced. That's what Mike Elko, Colin Klein, that's what they want to do. They want to rely on their defense a little bit more, too. So we'll see what happens. What do you think of LSU? First half, I thought passed all the tests. They just couldn't run the ball, and you asked way too much of Garrett Nussmeier, and he threw it into harm's way a couple times in the second half.
Yeah, I'm going to pass this one back to you, because they are my loser of the week. So I'm going to say
okay,
good stuff.
All right. We'll wait for that. We'll wait for that. But I do need to ask you, do you believe now? Do you believe now? Because Colorado's number 23 in the AP poll. They're 6-2. They're 4-1 in Big 12 conference play after handling business 34-23 this past weekend. Man, this team, I know we sort of bang the drum for them constantly, but there's just no more holding out on this team, man. The defense has been phenomenal. The amount of pressure and havoc plays that Warren Sapp's D-line is creating is phenomenal. Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, just A+, just about every game that they suit up. In this game, you had Shedeur Sanders go for 323. He was very efficient, had a couple of touchdowns. Travis Hunter had 9 catches for 153 and 2 touchdowns. And then he had a couple, I think 2 or 3 PBUs on the other side of the ball. Like, this team, I know that we had our questions about them after that North Dakota State game, right? Where you're sitting there and you're like, did they really improve, in any meaningful way in the trenches, on their defense? You were asking yourself that, because after that first game, you're like, okay, this offensive skill group definitely improved, but you didn't even need improvement there. You had a good group last year. But as we've seen the weeks go along, you've seen all of those groups that you needed to get better week by week. And that's all you can ask for with a growing program, with a program that was 1-11 a couple years ago. Just bring in the guys, get them right during fall camp. But, the first couple of games, if they don't look right, just let them progress. And I said this after that North Dakota State game. Everybody was bagging on Jordan Seaton, five-star left tackle over there, true freshman. He's looked damn good the past few weeks, and they're starting to run the ball a little bit more. He's a lot more comfortable, but you need to expect growing pains with all these new pieces melding together, but they have grown week by week. And that's been the most impressive thing for me because it shows the level of coaching and the talent they have coaching behind the scenes.
100%, man. And I'll start by saying a lot of people were giving them hell for the North Dakota State game, but you look up and North Dakota State is
They have a one next to
undefeated.
their name, don't they?
Oh yeah, I mean, listen, they're undefeated since that game. They beat South Dakota State, which has been those two have been the premier FCS programs over the last 5 years. So they are rolling and they look really good. So that's a win that's going to age extremely well for Colorado, and it might end up being, if there's a situation where they run the table and end up 10-2, that could end up being a quality win more than some of these G5 or lower level P4 schools that other programs have. So start by saying that, and then I want to give the defense a lot of love because people aren't talking enough about that defense. That defense was historically bad last season. They're now tied for 46 in scoring defense in the country. That may not sound like a lot to a lot of people, but going from a historically bad defense to a top 46 defensive team in terms of scoring, stopping the other team from scoring, that's an incredible turnaround from a first-year defensive coordinator, from a team that has all transfers starting on that defense.
Yep.
There's not a single guy on that program that started at Colorado that started at Colorado, and half of them weren't even there last season. So they stuck with their guys, and then they added a ton, especially up front on the defensive line, and they are buzzing, man. They've only given up 56 points the entire second half this season. They're averaging 7 points given up in the second half of ball games. So basically, if you do not have this team beat before halftime, Kansas State is the only exception, and I even put a little bit of an asterisk next to that one because that's the game that Travis Hunter went out, and how they lose that game, they gave up some bombs in the passing game where Travis Hunter's probably guarding that guy, or at least making them reconsider throwing to that side, and who knows how that game goes different, but they only lost that game by 3 points. I'm giving them all the credit in the world. Like you said, the run game is coming back. Shador, in my opinion, should be in the Heisman conversation over guys like Dylan Gabriel. And there's no slight to Dylan Gabriel. He's a fantastic quarterback. He's doing a very good job on a very good team. But if you watch Colorado play, the award's supposed to go to the most outstanding player in college football. To me, there isn't a quarterback sans Cam Ward that elevates his team as much as Shedeur Sanders. And I will argue that Shedeur probably elevates them a little bit more. I know the receiving room is loaded. I'm not going to act like they don't have talented receivers and skill guys. But I think Shedeur himself elevates that team as much as any quarterback in the country. So I'm super impressed with them. I'm not necessarily surprised. I just needed to see it, and they gave me what I wanted to see.
Now, I'll agree with you in the fact that I think Shedeur Sanders elevates his team substantially more than a guy like Dylan Gabriel. But the problem you run into, and obviously we're going to release our Heisman hype rankings later in the week. But, the problem I have is Dylan Gabriel's still putting up crazy numbers. He's got better numbers than Shedeur, and we know that ultimately comes into the conversation. But I completely agree with that sentiment. This is a guy who's been standing behind a bad offensive line for most of the year and still handling business. He delivers the ball on time, on target. He's rarely in a situation where he's uncomfortable. He's just got that it factor, man. There's just no doubt about it. And it's kind of funny you bring up that defense. I'm starting to recognize some guys out there for like actually good performances. Cameron Silman Craig, stud. He's their leader in tackles. Nakai Hill-Green, their inside backer, he's making plays all over the field. They have a bunch of guys on that D-line at the DN position that have been impressive. The Pitt transfer, Samuel Okunlola, he's been rolling.
97 catches my eye every game. Whoever he is.
Right. BJ Green is a guy who's been hooping a little bit. You just sort of look, Tajay McCoy has been getting after the pass a little bit. They have guys that they can sub in. They have a little bit more depth than I thought they would. And that D-line, man, like I had my questions about Warren Sapp as a coach. Like, okay, he hasn't really done it. Certainly hasn't done it in an FBS program, but you can tell the fruits of the labor are showing with Warren Sapp and the lessons he's teaching these guys in that meeting room and on the field.
Yeah, for sure. And he's a guy that a lot of people thought he didn't have any coaching experience. And that's not 100% accurate because he's a guy that had been around at a ton of NFL fellowships. So he spent 6 months with this team. I know he was with the Commanders for a while there. He had been with the Bucs for a while. He's a guy that has helped pass rush specialist type deals in the past. So he's a guy that's been in those rooms. He sat in the meetings, obviously outside of his playing career. We know what he was as a player, but he's a guy that's been in those meeting rooms as a coach, as a mentor, as a leader in that type of regard. And I think it's easy to get a guy like that to get kids to buy in. You look at Warren Sapp and what he is, what he's done. it's gonna mean a lot more coming from him than it would another coach. And that's not
100%.
to say that coaches can't be fantastic teachers and know the ball game inside and out, but it's a little bit different when you have a Hall of Famer that's as charismatic and excited about it as he is doing it. It's a lot easier for those kids to buy in. I'll say that.
And I can tell you this, like we both know this. Like obviously, I was, my best O line coach was Ryan Silverfield, and he's obviously coaching the Tigers now. He never played O line, but he
Right.
could teach it. There's no doubt about it. But when you have somebody who's done it before, like there's no way you could talk back. You could tell them they're wrong. You can't second guess their teachings. And I think that's something Warren Sapp has in his corner. And also, I think he's still very relatable to all these guys, and I think that's a big help. Now, staying in the Big 12, I want to bring this up real quick because I saw it come across my timeline. Max Olson wrote it for the ESPN, and it has to do with the Big 12 and helmet communications in the Power Four, because we've started doing that this year. Everybody in the Power Four has helmet communications where you can get coach to player on the field, whether it's quarterback or middle linebacker or safety, whoever has the green dot. But Max Olson wrote about how Texas Tech athletic director Kirby Hocutt raised an issue during a call with the Big 12 athletic directors on Tuesday. He raised up the idea that the helmet communications that they are using right now in the Big 12 are unencrypted. So if you were smart enough and you could hack the system, you could then hear what they're saying and what they're relaying to the field. And part of me, I understand, get them encrypted so you just leave that out. That shouldn't happen. But also part of me believes that Kirby Hocutt, this Texas Tech season started so well, they've lost 2 straight games in the Big 12. Now he's coping a little bit. I hate to believe that, but that's how I feel about this. Because honestly, you know this just as well as me. When you're signaling things from the sideline, sure, you can steal those, you can relay that to the field. But when you're stealing it and they're talking through a microphone, how are you going to get that relayed down to the field?
Have they played any road games?
It would be way too damn fast. That's just not possible.
It's silly. And I think, like, you're right, it should be encrypted, right? Like, you should make it as difficult as possible for something like that to happen. But the likelihood of that happening is slim to none. And it's convenient that it's happening on a 2-game skid when you've been using these things all season. So, he's full of shit on that one. But it is funny that if I was a Texas Tech Red Raider, I would be happy my guy was going to bat for me like that. But let's keep it real. There's
a non-issue.
Chance that's happening.
It's a non-issue. That's the only way I can put it. It's a complete non-issue. I guess get the communications encrypted. Make sure no one's wiretapping you. But no, it's not. It doesn't make a difference in wins and losses. I can tell you that right now. All right, now we have a couple of big games this weekend. I want to start with Penn State versus Ohio State. Number 3 versus number 4. It'll be at Happy Valley. That's where we're going to have College Game Day this weekend. But it's hard for me to look at this game and say who prevails, because I think the real question is who falls short. Because you have one guy on one side, and Ryan Day, who's lost a bunch of games in the AP Top 5. He's 2-6 in his career at Ohio State against the AP Top 5. Then you have another guy on the other side, and James Franklin, who's 1-9 against Ohio State. So this, to me, is sort of a little bit of a mid-off coaching-wise in regards to winning big games. And that's my question. Who falls short ultimately?
This game, to me, comes down to 3 players. And I know that we all know the game is bigger than that, right? But Will Howard, is he going to play erratic? Is he going to turn the ball over? He has to protect the ball, because this is a team that can make you pay in terms of time of possession. You haven't played a ton of teams that can really grind it out and make the game shorter. This is a Penn State team that can, with Katron Allen, Nick Singleton, and those guys. They can grind this game out and make it an ugly, slow game. So I think Will Howard has to protect the ball at all costs. Abdul Carter has to make his imprint on this game. He's one of the best defenders in the country. He has to dominate this game, especially if they're going to have a backup left tackle, which may be already hurt. Josh Simmons towards ACL, I believe, against Oregon. Then the backup this past week got hurt against Nebraska. They could be trotting out a third-string left tackle. If that guy is in the game, there is no reason why Abdul Carter and his talent, his ability level, shouldn't dominate this game and completely wreck Ohio State's offense. And then the last guy, who's the complete X factor, is Jeremiah Smith. He's an eraser, like I always talk about. He's a guy that didn't touch the ball in the second half of that ball game against Nebraska. That can never happen again at Ohio State. That's like Ryan Williams not touching the ball for Alabama, Trey Harris not touching the ball for Ole Miss. He cannot go an entire half without touching the ball again. So if they can get Jeremiah Smith going, I think he's the great eraser in this game. But those 3 players, to me, are going to determine the game. I know there's other X factors like Caleb Downs out there who's going to make all his plays, but I'm just counting those as already made, right? He's going to leave his impact on the game. He's a guy like Jinty, right? Like we know what Jinty's going to do. You need a guy like Maddox Madsen the other week who had some really long runs and some nice passes. That was the difference in that ball game, not necessarily Ashton Jinty. So I think those three guys are going to determine the outcome of this game far more than coaching, because I don't believe in either one of the coaches.
Right, I agree with you. I mean, I'm still waiting on Ryan Day. I am. I'm still holding out to see what happens because he's right there on the precipice. But if he loses this game, I'm telling you, I'm out. I'm out
Yeah.
on the experience
Yeah,
because
I mean-
you have a coach on the other side who's 1-9 against you. You have to continue that trend if you want to be serious. And also, one thing about James Franklin, he doesn't win games where he is a underdog. He just does
Right.
not win those games. He's consistent in that way. He's always got a 10-win team, but at the same time, he just does not win games that he's not supposed to win. And the one thing about Ohio State that's going to give me a little pause, and I hope they figure this out during this week of practice, but they really struggled against Nebraska running the football. And you're going to have to run the football at least a tad bit to alleviate some of the issues you could have with Will Howard taking care of the football and everything else, because that Penn State defense and defensive front's really good, but they just didn't do anything against Nebraska, and Nebraska really had a chance to go win that game. But this is where I really stake my claim. I think Penn State's just going to fall short again, and part of that is I've seen the track record with James Franklin, and I think when you couple that with the quarterback situation that they're dealing with this week, that's going to be really tough. You're either going to have a 75-80% Drew Aller or Bo Perbula, who is played in a couple of games so far this year. You would hate to see a guy have to start his first game dealing with Ohio State in front of him. I just don't think that would be a recipe for success. Although one thing that he could do, he's a little more dual threat than Drew Aller, so he could use his legs a little bit more. But I fully expect Ohio State to win this game. I just truly do.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a little bit of both. I think after the game he had against Nebraska and how explosive the offense looked with him, because the offense wasn't doing great with Drew Aller in there. But he came in there and the kid was very explosive, and he got the ground game going a little bit more. So I think you'll see both of them in any capacity, no matter what, if Drew Aller starts or not. But I think I agree with you there. I'm just going to go with the more talented team, right?
Yeah.
Like last week I said I thought LSU would win because they have more dudes, right? But take into account the home field advantage for Texas A&M and all that good stuff, I'm going to go the same route this week and say the team with the most dudes is going to win, and that's Ohio State. I believe in those guys more. I trust those guys more. And I think at the end of the day, they're too talented to lose a game like this, where it's going to come down to the dudes because of the coaching.
And let's also think about the fact that Ohio State's backs up against the wall. An Ohio State loss would mean a hell of a lot more than a Penn State loss. Penn State is going to cruise, in my opinion, probably into the 12-team playoff, because after this, you have Washington, at Purdue, at Minnesota, Maryland. I think they can handle business down the stretch unless they screw up mightily. Ohio State's a lot more desperate. Ohio State's a lot more desperate, which at this point in the season we wouldn't expect, but they are.
Hot seat talk after this loss if they lose this game with this roster?
Wait, who? Which side?
Ohio State.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. No doubt about it. Ohio State fans are going to be trying to burn down the damn facility.
They were leaking his address last week after a win.
When he shows up to campus coming up on Monday if they don't win this game. All right, now, cocktail party. I got to ask you this. Am I Georgia versus Florida?
Mm-hmm.
Am I crazy for giving the side eye to this game? Not that I think Georgia's going to lose, but I think Florida has the potential to stick in this game and make it competitive. They've been playing a lot better ball quietly because no one's paying attention to them, after the first game of the year when they got their ass kicked by Miami. But they're coming off a 48-20 win against Kentucky. They've been running the ball pretty consistently. DJ Lagway is creating some nice explosive plays in the pass and the run game. This team is a little bit sneaky, and I already watched this Georgia team. They've struggled on multiple occasions. Only beat Mississippi State by 10, beat Kentucky, the team that Florida just blew out by 1, 13-12 on the road. This game always means something to both these programs. I'm not saying that I think Georgia's going to lose, but I think Florida could really stick in there.
Yeah. I'm not even going to say that because we could get in trouble, and I'm going to protect the integrity of the G5 Classified podcast. But Florida could be down an important player this week coming up, which could change the trajectory of the game. So keeping that in mind, I'm still going to say that I agree with you on the front that they can make this a competitive game. Their defense has been playing well, even in the games that they've lost this season. Outside of the Miami game, The defense has played pretty damn well. So I'm going to give them a chance to win. And if Lagway is who we think he is, I think that kid can make some plays because there's plays to be made. If you watch that Mississippi State game, there was a lot of points that Mississippi State left on the field, and they scored 31 points against these guys. So I think they can go out there and make this a game. The environment's going to be split 50-50. It's never going to be a bigger advantage in terms of the crowd situation, which I think could help a team like Florida in this situation. So I'm excited to watch this game because Billy Napier has been coaching a lot more free. I think that happens when your back's up against the wall like his was, where you're just like, hey, I got to let it go. I don't have much to lose here anyway. So I think you're going to get the best version of Florida. And if Georgia is sleeping, it could be a problem. However, they might get the guy like Tate Ratledge back, Jared Wilson back, some of those guys that have been hurting. So bye week was really, really good and timely for Georgia.
I'm just worried about Florida's offensive line getting swallowed whole by the depth and the just strength that Georgia D line has been showing as of late. So we'll see what happens there. All right, now winners and losers of the week. I'm going to start with my winner because of their massive win over Navy. I know that people were completely counting out Navy. I wanted to stick in there with Navy, but Notre Dame just absolutely kicked the shit out of Navy. It wasn't even close. 51-14. Riley Leonard impressed me, not with the amount of yards he threw for, but he was on pace. He was on schedule. He was comfortable, didn't turn the ball over. They forced 5 turnovers on Navy, which is something that just not a lot of people can do. They were very good at creating, obviously, those turnovers, but creating points off of those turnovers.
Yep.
I thought very impressive. And then when you look down the stretch of their schedule, this is why I have them as my biggest winner. You have Florida State, Virginia, Army. You're sitting at number 8 in the country. The only game left on the schedule that even gives me pause is USC, but how much pause does that really give me with that USC team by the end of the year? I don't know what their mindset's going to be. Notre Dame's going to really be wanting to push themselves into the college football playoff, but their college football playoff hopes definitely skyrocketed by being able to get through this game unscathed, really easily, very comfortably, and the rest of their schedule should be cake.
Absolutely. My biggest winner for this week is Bray Hubbard, safety from Alabama, simply because his name was only called for positive things. It's an extremely tough situation for a guy like that to come in a situation at Alabama in a game that was a must win. To me, that was the first playoff game of the season. Alabama, Missouri. I don't think Missouri, even if they went out, will probably get the respect that they deserve because they would have lost to Texas A&M and Alabama, and then Alabama just simply had to win because they already had 2 losses. So I think that was the first playoff game, and for a guy like that to come in and not only play the game, not have his name called for anything negative, but to have his name repeatedly called for great things, get the interception, kind of flip the momentum, and do his job. I think a lot of times when you have, especially in a defense like Kane Womack's, which is built on chaos and havoc and guys making plays, you have the guy like Bray Hubbard comes in, who's a really good athlete, but he plays within the confines of the system more than the other guys that might be a little bit more talented than him, that are just going to run out there and they have those instincts. They want to go make plays. He was where he was supposed to be every play. Gains that were going for 14, 15 yards on the ground were stopped for 8-yard gains. And that may not be a big deal to people watching the game, but if you're watching this football game intently, you know those are massive plays in the game because you get into a 3rd and short where you might get a stop. And Alabama got a couple of stops off those 3rd and 4th and short situations. And those build up over time. Then he gets the interception on the ball. It looked like a cover 2 hole shot, but he's reading the quarterback the whole time, picks up off the ball. To me, it was very impressive for a guy in that situation in a must-win game to come in and take care of business. So shout out to him, and hopefully he stays healthy because he has a bright future ahead of him.
Yeah, and you're leading me right into my biggest loser. I'm going to go with Mizzou. I think the AP top 25, the voters should be freaking I don't even know. They should be drug tested for keeping them in the top 25. I know they have 2 losses. I know they have Mizzou on the helmet, and they were a top 10 team or whatever at some point this year. But this team hasn't done shit, man.
Right.
They haven't done a damn thing. Right. Tell me what they've done. They've had 2 big games this year against very worthy opponents, and they've lost by a combined 75-10.
Tough.
He couldn't even put up a point. Drew Pine, if he has to go for the rest of the year, you're absolutely screwed.
Yeah.
You have no chance. He's not a good quarterback. Never really has been for the most part. Brady Cook has to be in there, but if he's in there, you know that he's hurting and you know that he's risking himself out there. I wonder for him because I think he could be a potential, day 3 pick in the NFL draft. I wonder if he wants to sit back at some point and say, screw it, especially like when they get into the bowl season. Right. I doubt he'll play, but we'll see. He seems to really enjoy himself at Mizzou, and he likes playing at Faurot Field, so I'm sure he'll stick it out, but he's just not right. This team, I just think they are thoroughly average. And I knew this going into the year. I thought the loss of Blake Baker on the defensive side of the ball was massive. They lost about 4 or 5 guys to the NFL draft before the year on the defensive side of the ball. I think they're missing Cody Schrader to a certain extent.
Oh, yeah.
They've lost some offensive linemen. I know that their schedule was easy and everybody just sort of wrote in 10 wins, but this team's just not good.
Right.
Not good at all. Like, I think they're sort of the anti-Florida, where I think Mizzou is very average, but they had a really easy schedule, so that's why they're 6-2 right now. Florida might be a decent team, but they just had a shit schedule leading up to where they're at right this second. So
Right.
I'm going to put Mizzou as my biggest loser because it's. I think the clock has struck midnight on their college football playoff chances, and really any sort of semblance of Eli Drinkwitz getting to that moment.
Yeah, my biggest loser is going to be LSU, and not because they lost the ball game, but how they lost the ball game. It was a game, for all intents and purposes, that they had to win because now Alabama and LSU is the de facto second playoff game already. But I just didn't like the way they looked in the second half. It looked like a team that laid down, and I don't mean that in the sense that they weren't necessarily playing hard, but when it got tough, everybody looked like they were out of sorts. It didn't look like a well-coached ball club. And if you watched them play all year, it didn't look like a well-coached ball club against UCLA. It didn't look like a well-coached ball club for the first half of the Arkansas game, in my opinion. In the second half, they looked really good, and they turned it on. But this is a team that I think has very tough time adjusting. So when they play these good ball teams that put them in difficult predicaments, they never have an answer. To me, it's a little bit on the talent, but I don't think that they're a team that lacks for talent in a lot of areas. But to me, it's a reflection of the talent in certain spots and then the coaching. When you have a lack of adjustments, it speaks to the coaching staff. It speaks to their lack, I don't want to say lack of preparation, but the lack of answers. Maybe it's because of some of the lack of faith they have in the talent. But I've seen too many teams with far less talent than LSU play much better against similar teams. So it falls on the coach staff to me, and that starts with Brian Kelly and those guys. And luckily, he didn't throw anybody under the bus this game. I was actually proud of him for that, for not throwing his quarterback under the bus after he had a tough second half. But that's a team, in my opinion, that is underperforming despite them having a 6-2 record.
Yeah, I'm glad he didn't slam his fist on the presser table this week. But he's gone. Like, I know he's been on fraud watch for a while, really, since he's gotten LSU. He's now on fraud alert. He's now on fraud alert for me, brother. Like, that red light is flashing. It's spinning around. That guy, I am on high alert to watch him the rest of the year and watch his entire stint here at LSU, because the way things are going, man, I don't know how long it's going to last. I am questioning myself right now. I thought it was a good hire at the moment. He seems to be a program stabilizer, but it's not going. It just doesn't look right. He's lost identity. He doesn't seem to get across to those kids. You talked about the halftime adjustments every single time. His teams have sort of learned how to lose in those late game situations. Everything's starting to spiral on him to a certain extent. So we'll see how it all goes going forward. Now, I know how it's going to go going forward right here on the G5 Classified podcast. We're going to bring on Miami of Ohio head coach Chuck Martin to talk some ball, man. Can't wait to do it. We'll do it on the other side.
It's going to come down to also team success.
Hey, can we stop blowing the yard?
I mean, this is so rude.
Come on, we're doing a show over here. Not even a wave or nothing. Well, I love driving through your neighborhood, by the way, Brevin, because I waved to so many people today. And I initiated the wave. I didn't even let them wave first.
You waved first.
I waved first. They're like, oh, hey, there's that nice man in that big-ass truck.
He's so friendly. Well, I don't like that he's going to blow all that stuff onto mine. That's all right. When it's time for me to clean my yard, you know what I do?
Huh. Blow it right on back?
Blow it right on back. So we got a little blowing battle. Hold on.
Hey.
Whoa, hold on. Pause. Hold on. Hold on now.
Yeah, we'll just edit that out.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Put that on loop.
That's going to be our promo this week, probably.
Tune in to the Night Court podcast with your hosts, Rob Fisher and Brevin Knight, on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel. Just because you have been in someone's life or you run a business where you train people or you do things like that does not make you have the capacity or the capability to understand contractual law. And until the NCAA puts some kind of parameters around who can represent players when it comes to NIL negotiations with collectives, with schools, with whatever, we're going to see this happen all the time, because there are people that are involved in those contract negotiations that don't understand contracts and don't understand abiding by contracts and the inner workings and the language of contracts.
If you're a college athlete out there, look at me. Go hire a legitimate agency.
Yes.
To go over your contracts, to get you the money you deserve,
Right.
and to let you know the parameters of said contract. You need to hire someone legitimate, or you're going to end up in these types of situations.
100%.
Tune in to On the Bluff with Christian Fowler and Gabe Kuhn every Tuesday at 12 p.m. on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
We're back rolling, and we have a treat today. The Miami of Ohio head football coach Chuck Martin joins us live from Miami of Ohio. How about that? 60th win he's just coming off of. But Chuck, how's it going?
It's going well. It's going well.
Yes, sir. So 60th win you're just coming off of. I have to ask you about this. This is the most in program history for a football coach. What does that mean to you, considering all the names that have been there before you?
Yeah, even when I got hurt here 11 years ago, well, it means I've been here a long time. They can't get rid of me. That's what it really means. In this day and age of college football, staying any place for 11 years is almost, we say it's like dog years. So I actually been here 77 years, they said. But obviously when I got hurt, and it's the cradle of coaches and all the historic, iconic Hall of Famers that have been through here and been here as head coaches, assistant coaches, that was, as a college football fan, which I still am, that was good enough. And then obviously to be here a long time and have success and get to the point, we are 5 and, I took over, we were 0-16, and then we were 5-25 my first 30. So if you'd have talked to me halfway through year 3, it was probably more likely I didn't get to year 4 than be sitting here talking about breaking Randy Walker's record. So the fact that we took over such a disaster and it started off very slowly, obviously 5-25, to think that we got this point is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Gabe.
I was looking at it. There was in 2014, you guys snapped a 21-game losing streak. What all flipped when you first got there compared to where you're at now, winning MAC championships, putting yourself in that position? What was the flip for your program and your coaching style that ultimately led you to where you're at now?
Yeah, it honestly just took a while to get our kids in here. First couple of years, we were a disaster. We decided to build it right. It was before the portal and all that. So we decided to go with freshmen and, get young kids in here that wanted to win and could compete and would fit Miami as a student athlete. And we kind of, I'd asked the president, I said, if you want a quick fix, we got to gut the roster and try to get transfers. If you want to do it right, we can win. We can get good freshmen here at Miami, Ohio. We got a great tradition, and we did it. And then year 3, we had enough kids. We were really ready to roll year 3, but the first 6 games, we were down our 4th-team quarterback. And then we actually got our starter back week 7. And, we won our last 6 this year. So we were ready to go year 3. We just, being a year when you're playing your 14 quarterback, it's not very good. But then we got Gus back and we won our last 6, and I think we're now 45-18 in our last 63 MAC games. And prior to that, we were 4-26 in our last 30 MAC games. So obviously we've gotten good and stayed good for a long time in our league.
Awesome. Coach, you have a chance to be bowl eligible for the 6th time in the last 7 seasons this year. And the one that you weren't bowl eligible was the COVID year. So technically that doesn't even count. So 6 consecutive bowl eligible seasons. What can you kind of attribute that success to? The landscape has changed multiple times over that time span. So how has stuff like the transfer portal helped or hurt in a situation? You lost certain players, and you've been vocal about that before, but you've also been able to add players, and it's also helped you along the journey. Can you talk about how the landscape has changed?
Yeah, we 10 years ago we set out to build a consistent winner. We have been. We've been, like I said, the best record in our league over the last 7+ years. So when you have the best record in the league, you're going to be bowl eligible. That's just part of it. Our deal is trying to win MAC championships. We won in 19. COVID, we played 3 games. 21, we missed a 2-point play. The last play of the year, we'd have been back in Detroit with a chance to defend, but we missed it, and Kent State got to go. 22, we lost our starting quarterback to broken collarbone. 23, we won it. We lost our starting quarterback again, but we won it with our backup, and right now we're in the mix fighting for it again. So we've been a consistent team. the portal's obviously changed everything for everybody. The tough thing is you can't forecast. Like before, you always had like this 5-year plan, and you had these seniors and they're leaving, and every year in recruiting, hey, we got to get a tight end because 2 years from now he's going to need to be our starter. Well, there's no long-term forecasting anymore. It's a 1-year roster, and yeah, maybe you're going to have a kid 1, 2, 3, or 4 years, but you really can't count on that. So it's like you get a roster for 1 year and you roll with it. And then in December, you see who leaves because they don't tell you. Like, it's not like they tell you, hey, coach, at the end of this year, I'm going to get in the portal and try to go to Texas A&M or wherever. You know what I mean? So you're so much more reactionary. You just got to wait, and then you got to react, and you got to try to do the best you can to fill in the holes that you don't. Where before you kind of knew, hey, so-and-so is going to graduate in 2 years. I better be ready with somebody else. You can't do that anymore. You just have to build 1-year rosters. That's why I think we'll get there. I hope we get there, that the one portal window in December, January has to get through for it to make any sense. Because then at least, it's still going to be a 1-year roster, but then at least when you start second semester, that's going to be your team for 1 year. Now it's insane because, heck, hey, there's kids like, you practicing kids in spring ball. Do I give him a lot of reps? Is he going to transfer? Like I think about that stuff. Like, do I pour my eggs into this kid? Then he transfer. Well, I should have developed somebody else. So you're kind of hedging. Where at least you could go for 1 year at a time. It'd still be crazy because it'd still be huge roster turnover every year. But at least it wouldn't be roster turnover in January and then another roster turnover at the end of spring ball. Then you got summer and fall to try to put together a team. That makes it a little bit crazy. But we're just very reactionary now. And again, like I always say, no one asked me about my opinion on any of this, so I don't have it. I just tell our guys, hey, we're going to roll in December. We're going to get this team. We're going to be as good as we're going to try to get back to Detroit. We're 4 games away. If we can win out, we get back to Detroit and try and defend our title. And then whatever happens after that, we just got to look at it and roll with it.
So what do you think about that when it comes to like recruiting the guys on your roster, like how much it's changed? Have you had to sort of adjust the way you coach on field because of things like that, or do you still you're the same guy day in, day out?
Probably should have. Haven't figured that part out yet. Hard to teach an old dog new tricks. So we coach him hard. Right. So we're not trying to keep a kid around because he doesn't want to be coached. We're trying to keep a kid around because he's a really good player and a really good person, a really good student, and he wants to be coached. Like, and he wants to be developed. That's kind of our deal. Like, we took a running back that was at an SEC school and wasn't playing and wasn't any good, wasn't good enough to play college football. And then he gained 1,200 yards for us. And part of it was there was an SEC tailback coming to the MAC. Don't get me wrong. There's talent there. But we also developed his talent. There was things when he first got here that I'm like, I can probably see why he was struggling. You know what I mean? But we worked through some of those things and got him, we always talk about being the best version of yourself. We got him to be the best version of himself. Like, so that's kind of the part of it for us is like, hey, we're still in the development business. We're not. I coached at Notre Dame. I coached where you get a 5. We had Stephon Tuitt. He was 6'6", 310 pounds, ran a 4.6 in high school. Did we do a good job with Stephon Tuitt at Notre Dame? Yeah, but he could have skipped Notre Dame, went right to the Pittsburgh Steelers. He'd been fine. Like, he didn't need a whole lot of development. We're still at our level, still in the development business. So we're trying to convince kids to stay so you can continue to get developed. And then to play. We've had kids leave for money. They don't play. They're getting a bunch of money, but they ain't playing. Like, we got a kid averaging 15 snaps a game at Oklahoma right now. He was the best defensive player in our league. He was going to get drafted last year. I'm not saying he still can't get drafted, but usually the backup at Oklahoma didn't get drafted. It's like, yeah, he got a bunch of cash, but I would say the NFL cash is different. Like, I want to go get 200,000. I said, well, the NFL minimum is 860, and if you make it 5 years in the league, that's forever. You get the pension. Like, stay here, we'll help you get to the league, and then get that pension, and you won't worry about that 200,000 that Oklahoma was throwing around.
Yeah. Now, I'm curious about this. You talk about development. I want to talk about your scheduled development every year. Well, do you have conversations with your athletic director, people in your athletic department? You guys go hard in the non-con. I mean, you guys every single year schedule as hard as possible. This year, Northwestern, Cincy, and Notre Dame.
Yeah, we're the only team in the country to play 3 G Power 4s off the bat, and the only team in the country not to play 1 AA. Yeah. No, I've been here 11 years. I've never been asked about scheduling, unfortunately. I've given my opinion quite often. No one listens to me though. So we schedule to make some money. That's why we schedule. It's not necessarily the best way, in my opinion, to do business, but it's like the portal. No one asked me, so that's the schedule they play. I like playing those big games. Don't get me wrong. I just don't want to play back to back to back. That's insane. You know what I mean? But as far as going to Northwest, playing Northwest, that's a blast. playing Cincinnati, that's a blast. Playing Notre Dame, that's a blast. Now 1, 2, 3, we're still trying to get healthy. You know what I mean? We've a lot of carnage, and then you're 0-3, and we actually played our tails off in all 3 games and had a chance to win the first 2. And for the first 25 minutes, we had Notre Dame. We had outplayed them, and we hung in there. But you're still 0-3, and the morale and the carnage of the injuries, it's not good. So
Right.
we go strong or go home. But if you look at my league record, my non-league record, that's why my overall record is about 500, because I've been 1-3 in non-league every year but 1 for 11 years. So it's hard to start every year 1-3 and be good, but we figured out a way to do it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Coach, you had a lot of success at Grand Valley State. Can you kind of talk about what it was like building at that level and how that translates to a higher level?
Yeah, well, I was fortunate. I got hired in 2000. Brian Kelly was the head coach. We got it going. They had never won a playoff game before 2000, but we won national championships in 2002 and 2003. And then he left to go to Central Michigan and then to Cincinnati, Notre Dame, LSU. But I took over as head coach. So my first head coaching job in some ways was awesome because I took over the national champs. In some ways it was awful because we went 10-3 the next year and they were trying to run me out of town because we were coming off back-to-back national titles. But the program had already been built by BK. Did I do a good job of keeping it rolling? Yeah, we went 74-7 the next 6 years and won a couple more national titles. But I can't take credit for building Grand Valley. I can take credit as BK's assistant helping him build it. But that thing was a Rolls Royce when I took it over. So that was fortunate kind of first job. And I always talk about Grand Valley was kind of coaching Fantasy Island. I'd have young coaches and we'd beat everybody brains out every week until like the semis. And I'd say, hey, you're going to get a real job someday because I've had real jobs. We're really good. That was a lot of fun. So this was a rebuild though. That was kind of my lure. Like I took over Grand Valley, their national championships, and we kept it going. Can I actually rebuild something? Can I actually do something myself? And not that we don't have great tradition here, but we were at the bottom of the barrel. So we're very proud of taking this from scratch and building it into a consistent winner every single year for the last 7 years.
All right, now holler at me about your athletic career. I'm very familiar with Millikan University. I'm from the city of St. Louis, like your quarterback, by the way. We'll get to your quarterback here in a second,
Yes.
Brett Gavin. But you went to Millikan University, Decatur, Illinois. I've actually been out there for a game. I had a buddy who played running back there probably 4 or 5 years ago. He graduated, but you were All-American safety, all-conference kicker, and you played guard on the basketball team, average about 9 points per game. And this is via Wikipedia page. Shout out to Wikipedia.
There you go. There you go.
But you were a multi-sport athlete. That's something that I don't know if a lot of people know about you.
Yeah, it was. I had the time of my life, to be honest. I love sports. I wasn't very good. I got an opportunity. I was recruited by one school and one school only, Millikan University. I actually went there to play basketball. Was kind of going to be my thing. I probably had a little better football career than basketball career. We won the league in both sports when I was there, which they haven't done since. So we're very proud of our time there. We were 30-7 my 4 years in football, and my junior year we won the league in basketball. I was kind of a six-man in basketball. I did start my senior year. We weren't very good my senior year. When my first 3 years, we were really good, 20-win teams. I was a role player. I was like Craig Elo. You guys probably don't even know who Craig Elo is, but he used to play for the Cavaliers. Kind of, I could do a little bit of everything. I wasn't really good at anything. But I was a nice bench guy. And then football, I was part of really good teams. We had one of the best defenses. There's going to be some guys that get some accolades. I was not near. I got all the good players lined up. I was a pretty good coach back then, even when I was a player. So, but I had the time of my life. I had a blast. I kept my childhood going. I played 2 sports for 4 years. And as we always say in Division III, it's a cut above intramurals, and we're very proud of it.
Yeah, and you got. I mean, seriously, it's for the love of the game. But what's Decatur, Illinois like? I remember on my way from St. Louis all the way to Decatur. You don't see much. You don't see much on the way to Decatur, Illinois. You do pass through one of my favorite cities ever though, Booty, Illinois. Boody, Booty, Illinois.
Go by Litchfield. You go a lot of the places. A lot of Central Illinois, a lot of rural farm, a lot of really good people, and that was most of my teammates for Central Illinois. Decatur, when you go in, this is all you need to know. When you pull in, if you're coming from the north, from Chicago like I was, it says Decatur, Illinois, soybean capital of the world. So if that's on your city sign, you probably don't have a whole lot else going for you. Right? If the thing was I remember when I took my visit, I'm like, soybean capital of the world. Who would put that on a sign? But I don't even know if they were, but that's what was their claim to fame. But I had a blast. Decatur's like any central Illinois town. There's good and bad in it. But it's a good little school, and I still have a ton of good friends that live in that area. So it was fantastic for me.
Coach, I have a question about, there's been some topics broached about a G5 playoff. What do you think about that, separating from the Power Four conferences? Do you like it? Do you not like it? What would be a benefit or a negative to it? It's kind of an interesting topic that I've been seeing a lot here lately.
Yeah, I think everybody's talking about that because I think everybody's anticipating at some point they break away and you don't have a choice. You got to have a playoff.
Right.
You got to do something. Then what are you going to do? I like the idea right now of one G5 team getting in the big dance. I think that's pretty cool. So I would like, what I personally would like is everybody in college football to work together to make the product the best it could be. And it's already amazing. It'd be even more amazing. I don't think that'll ever happen. I think the Big Ten, the SEC are going to do their own thing and they don't care about anyone else. But I think that also will become a bloodbath and they may regret it in the long run. They won't regret the money, but they'll regret, we're better together, in my opinion. And I've coached at Notre Dame and I get that level that they don't need us. But in my opinion, March Madness without us isn't March Madness. Go have the top 40 teams playing March Madness. It's not going to be near as cool a tournament, But again, everybody's greedy. Everybody's out for themselves. Everybody's trying to do what's in the best interest of their school. We can't even come together as a league, let alone there's plenty of money to go around, but we don't want it to go around. We want it just to go to, and again, the SEC and the Big Ten, I think eventually, in my opinion, they'll break away and they'll have their own little deal and it'll be really cool for a couple of years. Then it'll get it's just these same 40 teams or 30 teams. And
Right.
There is no major upsets because they're all the same. There is no, there is no Northern Illinois beating Notre Dame. There is no, that's what makes athletics so wonderful. And again, we love to see Georgia and Alabama. Don't get me wrong. I'm a sports fan. I like to see Ohio State, Michigan. I like to see Notre Dame, USC. That's what we truly love. But we also love every so often when Appy State beats Michigan
Right.
And again, if they kept a model where they kept us all together and shared them wealth a little bit, which they're not going to do, they're already cutting us out. They're keeping us around because they lost this lawsuit and they want us to pay their debt. If I was in charge and no one asked me, I would tell them to go pound sand. I wouldn't pay any of their debt because we're not getting any of it. I would say, hey, you want us to pay your debt and then you're going to kick us to the curb because they're going to kick us. I wouldn't make the thing in the big we'll take it.
We're sort of losing you, Coach. You're a little in and out.
All right, can you hear me or no?
Yeah, there we go. Now there it goes. It cleared now.
That's good. I didn't move, but
yeah, no,
I would say keep it together. I don't think they're.
Yeah, but honestly, it's a lot of athletes and a lot of fan bases left behind. In the truth of the matter, I went to Memphis. He went to Jacksonville State. In the grand scheme of the future of college football, where do those type of programs fit in? Where do you find yourself? You just leave a fan base and a bunch of athletes and coaches and the whole athletic department behind. It's frustrating reality, and we'll see where it goes from here. But definitely frustrating for us here on this podcast. I can tell you that much. We cover G5 football. We definitely get frustrated with that. Now, talk to me about Brett Gabbert, your quarterback out of St. Louis area. He's a brother of Blaine Gabbert, who's I don't know if he's still kicking around the league. He may have been to a couple of games this year, but
finally retired. This is the first year finally retired.
But he came from Christian Brothers there in St. Louis. He's been there for years and years and years. He's had some trials and tribulations too. He's had some serious injuries along the way, but he has fought through and definitely been a good quarterback for you. What makes him who he is in regards to being able to lead your program all these years?
It's and speed. He's not that tall and he's not that fast. Really good, deliberate, quick decision maker, which is probably a quarterback. Any white don't see the NFL they just can't make them quick enough. Really, really amazing pocket presence, feeling stuff in the pocket, knowing when to run, when to throw it away, when to ad lib and make a play, and then as competitive and as tough a football player as I've ever been around. And everybody says, quarterback-wise, it's important to be tough because you got to stand in the pocket and take hits. And a lot of quarterbacks don't like that. They're really good on days where the pocket's clean, and they're really not good on days when the pocket's not clean. If you ever want to try to figure out who the good NFL quarterback is going to be, which I don't think is very hard every year, I kind of make my own predictions. And the guys that can make quick decisions and make plays under duress got a chance in the NFL. If you can't, because the NFL pockets don't last more than 0.5 seconds. So you're always like, you could go to a high-end Power 5 team and never get hit. And you go to the NFL, you're getting hit. And you're getting hit early and quick. And you got to make quick decisions. And if you don't, you throw the ball to the other team, you lose your job very quickly. And a lot of NFL quarterbacks go through it. But Brett, the only true freshman starter at quarterback in the history of Miami football, which is pretty amazing right there. Ben Roethlisberger did not start as a true freshman here, which is also mind-blowing. I'm not sure. I can't believe that, but it is true. He did. He was a backup to Mike Bath's freshman year, and he led us to the conference championship in 19 as a true freshman. He started his college career. You talk about toughness and confidence and you know the program at CPC is unbelievable. He played a lot of games. He's at Kennesaw State Saturday night. Cincinnati, who was top 20 at that point, and Boise State. That's how he started his career. So I'm the college football freshman. 21 almost got us back there. We lost on a 2-point conversion. We didn't get there. 22 stinks. He breaks his collarbone against Kentucky on the first game of the year. Misses all of 22 basically. Comes back in 23. We're rolling. We're 7-1. We're coming back and going to beat Toledo. And he breaks his leg and his bone sticking out of his leg. The worst thing I've ever been a part of in my life. We end up winning the conference championship without him somehow. Credit to our kids. But comes back this year. No one thought he was coming back. He decides he wants to come back. Got cleared in camp. Is just the last 3 weeks back to being himself. Anybody's watched Brett the first 5 weeks, it wasn't Brett. It was close, but it wasn't. He wasn't comfortable out there, and there's no one more comfortable in the arena than Brett Gabrick. The last 3 weeks he looks like the old self. So he's had an amazing career, like you said, amazing high school career at CBC, amazing career here, and then gone through a lot. And I wouldn't have blamed him if he didn't come back from a broken fibula, but kid's tougher than nails and no one loves being in the arena more than him. He loves being at Notre Dame. He loves being at Cincinnati. He loves the moments with everybody breathing down his neck, and it's either him or not get it done. So he's been an amazing player here.
All right, Coach. Only a couple more things for you, but I have to bring up one of your presser sort of topics earlier in the year. I don't know if you know where I'm going to go with this, but you talked about iPads on the sidelines and in-game adjustments and how you don't necessarily like the technology. And you remember back in the day when you actually had to, study what was going on the field, whether it's from the sideline or from the press box, and how you miss those days. And I can tell you when I was in college, we didn't have iPads on the sideline. We didn't have anything like that. But sort of speak to that and sort of what you meant there in the presser when you brought that up.
Yeah, and I don't feel any differently. Now, we're using the iPads like everybody else, and they're a huge benefit. Like, you come off the field, and the only thing I do like about it is you used to tell a player when he came off the field, like, hey, what the heck are you doing? You ran the wrong route. No, I didn't. And then you'd have to wait till Sunday to show him. Well, now you just shove the iPad, and you're like, what the hell are you doing here? What is this? So I do enjoy that part because you get instant feedback to show them, like, what? And that's not what we coach. That's not how we play. I do believe what I said back. Like, coaching, you used to have to coach. Like, it's an equalizer. Like, like anybody get an iPad and watch they were in cover 3. Like, you used to have to see it live. And if you didn't see it live, you didn't see it live. And you used to have to make real in-game adjustments. We always felt like we had a huge advantage because we would see a lot of stuff and we could make adjustments. And to me, it separated the good coaches from the bad coaches. Now everybody can be a good coach. Like, you don't have to make any in-game adjustment. You got a stupid iPad. You just watch it there. It's like, so, talking to the quarterback and like, again, I get the idea of trying to get away the sign stealing, but no one in college football huddles, so we all still signal. So that's dumb. We're not getting rid of sign stealing in college because no one huddles besides Michigan. If you didn't huddle, then the headphone. But now you're telling the quarterback, defensive guy, all the old days you had to coach him, and then he had to go out there and make decisions. Heck, our D coordinator talks to our linebacker and tells him everything. And our linebacker's brilliant. Salopek's one of the best players in the country, but we still do all the work for. Like, you used to have to coach and actually have players understand. Hey, tell them to watch this. Tell them to watch this. Tell them to watch this. Well, you used to couldn't do that before the snap. So I'm still not a fan of it. I think it's a great equalizer. I think it takes a lot away from what our jobs used to be. But again, no one's ever asked me. So, well, you did. So I get to get on my soapbox and complain about it.
Yeah, one more thing, Coach, and we'll get you out of here. I like to ask the players this, and now I've started to ask coaches and administrators this, but do you have any game day traditions? Like, do you have to go eat at a certain place, or you have to wear a certain shirt? Do you have to walk the field at a certain time? Do you have any of those superstitions?
I am the least superstitious. I am the only non-superstitious person, because all athletes and coaches are superstitious.
Yeah.
I literally, like, they were going to do a story on me when I was at Grand Valley, and like my superstitions and my hobbies. And I said, you can come. I don't have any hobbies. I am the boring, ask my wife, I'm the lamest human being on the planet. I don't do anything. I don't go on vacations. I just work, and I like my family, but we live and then I have no superstitions. They're like, come on, you have to have, I go, okay, I got one superstition. Here's my superstition, that I have really good players in my locker room. That's my superstition. So you can have your lucky tie. I always say, I'll take my guys at Grand Valley. You don't step on the line. I'll send my guys at Grand Valley. We'll whip your ass, And then you'll have your lucky tie, and I'll send my players out there. We'll whip your, again. Like, having good players, like, I don't ever do anything the same way twice. Like, never. Like what I wear, what I don't wear. I'll change our practice schedule all the time. I don't. If we're winning, we're losing. I just try to do what I think's best. So I don't. Superstitions, man. I go, if there's a lucky tie, we never lose. Right? We all lose. Like, there's no such thing as a lucky tie. Like, you got to wear your lucky. When somebody won 300 straight games, then that's a lucky tie. We all lose. Like, so there can't be your lucky meal, your lucky this. It's a bunch of wasted time.
So we learned you're not holding your breath
on
bridges anytime soon. You're not wearing the same pair of socks, nothing like that.
I don't like heights. I'm afraid of bridges, but that's I'm holding my breath for different reasons. No, I don't.
Gotcha. Well, how about this then?
Well,
to make it a little more interesting, any music on game day? We've been asking everybody about their music on game day. Are you a music guy?
No, I love music.
Nothing like that.
I don't listen to any on game day.
Okay.
I'm just nervous on game day. I'm still. I can't eat, and I get real nervous, and hope we play well. So yeah, no, I'm not into momentum. I think momentum doesn't exist in my mind. Like, momentum's created between our ears. Like I always say, like, we lost the momentum. I said some losing coach talked about in a post game because he was really smart. Like, well, we lost the momentum. That's why we lost. Like, well, if we lost the momentum, where'd it go? Was it under the bench? Like, where'd it go? Like, let's go find it if it's so important. Like, momentum's just how you vision the next play. If they make a big play and you think, woe is me, that's fans, right? My dad's the perfect guy. Like who's wasn't our day. I'm like, Dad, it was a coin. That's how fans think. Or think that way. Like, that's why we keep going 1-3 non-league and keep being good, because we don't believe that. No, who cares? Week 5 is week 5. Like, we stink. Yeah, the whole world. 3 weeks ago, everybody thought we stink. Now everybody thinks we're going to run the table. Welcome to fandom. It's what have you done last Saturday?
Yes, sir. Well, Coach Martin, I will say this: enjoy the rest of your somewhat open week, and then good luck in Muncie on Tuesday.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me, guys. Yes, anytime.
Appreciate it. Yes, sir. He is head coach of Miami of Ohio, Chuck Martin.
Missouri's not a top-tier team like some of these exhibition games that Memphis has played, but if you look at the KenPom rankings, they're 51. Memphis is 42. We know Missouri was a disappointing team last year. We expected
that's underselling it. They didn't win an SEC game. They were horrible.
They've kind of reloaded. They've got a solid roster. It should be a really good test to start the actual season for Memphis.
Because Dennis Gates knows he's got to get it going. You can't have a defeated season in the SEC and SEC play. Even if you made the tournament a couple years ago, you can't have that and expect to not be on the hottest of hot seats. So he knows he's got to get it going quick. And I'll give him credit. He went into the portal this offseason and made some additions that I think can put them in at least a competitive spot. Look at this Mizzou team. It's going to be a nice test. But it's one that I think the Tigers, if they want to take themselves seriously, should pass. They really should pass this one.
Tune in to On the Bluff with Christian Fowler and Gabe Kuhn every Tuesday at 12 p.m. on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
FPI gives you a 71% chance to win. I think it opened at 9.5. It's currently sitting at 7.5. Over-unders at 60. 7.5 feels right. I think it's it probably falls in the 7 to 10 range. You win by a touchdown or 10 maybe. I don't think you get two tutties. And maybe it's a weird game. Maybe we put it together. Defense is running, offense is iron things out, and you come out and you blow them out 42-17 or something. But it feels like it's probably going to be one of those 24-10 or 21-13, 21-7 type of things to me.
I'm gonna let you know right now, Memphis is gonna try to put up 200 rushing yards.
Yeah, we should. I mean, the two teams that you named are the only two decent teams that they've played.
Tune in to Tigers Untapped with TJ Willis and Trey Lasley every Wednesday at 3 p.m. on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
Chuck Martin from Miami of Ohio. Appreciate him for carving out some time. He's the absolute man. And Maction is going to return early next week. I know we're hyped up for it. I'm ready for like snow and sleet games. That's what I need. I need a little bit of that in my life.
Yeah, those snow games where it's like 7-3, and then you get like 4 scores in the last 2 minutes of the game. Those are my type of football games.
And this is why you don't have like undefeated teams in the MAC, because they have to play those shit games at the end of the year when they're all banged up.
Tuesday night, like.
Yeah, they'll lose to a 2-8 team when they're undefeated. Like it's brutal, man. The MAC is absolutely brutal. All right, now let's get to our G5 check-in. I'm going to start with Boise State, man. They're in the driver's seat of the college football playoff to get to the college football playoff after beating our good friend Barry Odom and UNLV 29-24. That was just a well-competed game. I think the real big difference is obviously the pick that Haj Malik Williams threw. That got returned down to the 7, that gave Boise State a 2-score lead. UNLV was never able to bridge the gap after that. But those things happen. I just thought it was a well-competed game. Both teams really brought it.
100%. They really kept Jinty under wraps for the most part. I mean, you look at the stat line. He had 33 rushes for, I believe, 128 yards. But that was a career high in rushes, and it was one of his lowest rushing attempts for the season. So they did a fantastic job on Jinty, in my opinion. They were right there in that game. I mean, they had a couple of chances to get off the field late in the game. Could have had a chance to go down there and score. So I think that, like you said, it was just a well-played football game, two very well-coached football teams. And I got to give a little bit of credit to Maddox Madsen, because I thought he played a little bit above anything I've seen him play this regular season. So good job on him for doing that. And I think UNLV is still a team that could potentially win 10 football games. I think I would expect them.
Don't sleep on them.
I don't think that's a team that if they don't have any P5s left, I think they should run the table against whoever else they play. I mean, if you blind them up with Boise State 10 times, I believe it might split down the middle. That's how close that game was. That's how close those teams are. So I still think there's a lot on the table for UNLV and Barry Odom and those guys. And it was a damn good football game.
Yeah, and shout out to Maddox Madsen, like you said. He's only got 2 picks all year. He played a clean ball game in that game. He hit 9 different receivers. They don't really have any receivers that sort of take the cake as consistent targets. So he just found his guys, got a couple of nice third down conversions thrown to his tight end. I was impressed with Maddox Madsen. We haven't seen him have to do that. UNLV forced him to do that, and he was able to come through when it mattered. So shout out to him. But yeah, don't close the book. Don't close the door on UNLV. That's very well likely. We're going to see probably a rematch by the end of the year in the Mountain West Conference Championship. So I very much expect these teams to see each other again, unless some team in the Mountain West just rises to the top randomly, the Colorado State or somebody like that. But when you look at UNLV, that's still a damn good football team. They had a really good plan for Ashton Jinty. And I think more so than anything, they're just a very sound tackling team. Ashton Jinty almost broke a couple for 50 to 70 yards like he would versus a normal team, but you always saw him get tripped up by the shoelaces late, and that's the sign of a good, well-coached defense that's in the right place at the right time and can execute the game plan. So I was impressed there. And also, I did want to bring this stat because I saw this today. Of all the quarterbacks that transferred this past offseason, Haj Malik Williams is actually the 3rd most efficient transfer quarterback in college football this year. He's ahead of Dylan Gabriel, Cam Ward, and Will Rogers from an efficiency standpoint. And he can run the hell out of the ball, man. He's fast. He is very, very fast. And which is sort of going to get us into our next point here. But the guy he's replacing, Matthew Sluka, he's officially in the transfer portal. What do we think there, Matthew Sluka? Into the transfer portal. I just think he made the wrong decision ultimately. Unfortunately, it's just it is what it is.
I think he made the wrong decision, but he's a guy that with his skill set, I think you'll see somebody take a flyer on him. Maybe a team like Texas State, right, with G.J. Kennedy that could use a guy like that, or maybe a Western Kentucky that's looking to reload. Maybe even a Jacksonville State, like our starting quarterback Tyler Huff is a 6-year transfer from an FCS program, kind of in the same ilk, right? So I think there will be a market for him, but ultimately he did make the wrong decision because it was a golden opportunity for UNLV this season. And I know the UNLV faithful and most of the country are probably like, hey, UNLV probably, caught a break there with getting Hodge Malik Williams in there and letting a guy like that play. So definitely an unfortunate situation. Hopefully the NIL world and the kids and the programs learn from this going forward. But there'll be a market for him, but it just won't be the same, right? Let's say he goes somewhere and has a really good season. It'll always be a cloud over his head. And that's unfortunate.
And it's not going to be close to the type of value he thought he was creating for himself through the first 3 games of the year. And I think there's something to be sort of learned here for like a lot of college athletes that want to build their brand up. Like, absolutely build your brand up. But sometimes the best way to build your brand up is by winning and being the face of that winning. And that's why you see Hodge Malik Williams go into hyperdrive, why people love him. I don't know if he's struck any NIL deals, but I imagine he's getting something behind the scenes with the way he's been playing. So, like, as much as you want your brand to be built and you want to get that money right when you get to campus, sometimes it's best to be out front to build your brand while you're on the field. That's something that I learned through this process, and I think a lot of other athletes can learn as well. My Memphis Tigers are still putting along. I don't know did you see any of that Charlotte-Memphis game?
Yeah, well, our guy Colton hollered at me, and he was like, oh, my God, the Fighting Coons are struggling right now. And I look at the score, and you guys are down with like 2 minutes left. I'm like, what the heck is going on? So I did catch the last couple minutes of the game where you guys were able to pull that out. Shout out to Rock Taylor, a 256 kid from right down the road at Oxford, Alabama. But that was an interesting game because I thought that was a game you guys would probably just kick their ass,
It was an absolute fucking war. And it's like, why are you sitting here in wars with Charlotte, man? What are you doing? What we've seen so far with this team, though, unless they're forced to play offense, they don't really open it up and play offense.
Right.
They'll build these 14, 17, 21 point leads, and they'll sit on them. And they rely on their defense, which has not been reliable. So it's just strange to me the way they're playing, but they're still out here. They still got a chance. I mean, you're going to have Army visiting North Texas in a couple of weeks. Who knows what happens there? I would probably pick Army, but again, you're going on the road against North Texas. They have a really high-powered offense, could get tricky. And then you have Navy versus Tulane in a couple of weeks. And if that happens, you would have Tulane with the tiebreaker over Navy if they win. And then at the end of the year, Memphis is going to have an opportunity to have the tiebreaker over Tulane. So they'd all have tiebreakers over each other, and you would go to the tie-breaking scenario. And right now, Memphis's metrics are actually higher than most of the AAC. I think according to Connolly S&P Plus for ESPN, they're 50th in the country, and the only team higher than them in the AAC is Army at 34, because Navy dropped way down after that loss against Notre Dame. Tulane's behind, I think, at 59 compared to Memphis's 50. So there's still some ways to get into the AAC championship. They just got to take care of business. I fully expect them to be 10-1 by the time they play Tulane on Thanksgiving night. But at the same time, I don't expect any of these games to be blowouts because they haven't shown that they're able to do that or that they want to do that. It's just it's strange. It's strange, man. It's really strange. They have the ability to. They have the ability to open it up offensively. They just don't do it unless they feel pressure, unless they feel as if somebody is, breathing down their neck. But hey, it is what it is. And by the way, Kennesaw State did the Lord's work this past week, and they beat Liberty, who we were all just hoping was going to lose a game because they are not worthy of any college football playoff, recognition. But if they went undefeated, we were going to have that conversation.
Yeah.
But Kennesaw State, who was 0-6, ends up beating the undefeated Liberty Flames. They were 27.5-point dogs, and Liberty had not lost a game at home since 2022. And Kennesaw State, first year in FBS, is able to do it, gets over top 27-24.
Yeah, that was the biggest upset in the year of college football. Maybe not the most impactful, right? Like, it's a regular game for most people, but in terms of like point spread, the actual discrepancy of talent on the field, that was by far the biggest upset on the field this year. So crazy game. When we're watching Liberty, Jacksonville State right now, watching Caden Salter run around right now on a 2nd and 14 play like Johnny Manziel. The pass is incomplete, but that's an insane play. But yeah, Liberty's still a very talented team in terms of the G5 level, but I 100% agree. They're not a team that should respectfully get into the playoff right now. They're probably, I won't say probably, they may not win this game against Jacksonville State. They're down 10 in the fourth quarter right now. So hopefully that holds, but that was definitely the biggest upset of the year for me.
Yep. Yeah, it's 24-14 right now, right? That's the update that we have on the Liberty Jacksonville State game. So, yeah, I like it. Hand them another loss. Really, leave no doubt. Leave no doubt. All right, now our G5 game of the week this week. Not a good selection. I don't know if you've looked at the slate. Just a shit selection in the group of five. But I'm going to go with two teams that are undefeated in the Mountain West, and that's San Diego State visiting Boise State, who's number 15 in the country. Boise State 23.5-point favorites, though I don't expect this game to be close. I don't think San Diego State has really played all that well. Danny O'Neal, their quarterback, has not been able to air it out. I think I have some questions about Sean Lewis. He got fired at Colorado as the OC. That offense seems to be rolling in a different direction and playing a whole lot better, especially running the ball this year. And he has not been able to get that offense up off the ground this year at San Diego State. That's been sort of for the most part, a defensive-led team.
Yep, and he took some guys with him. He took tight end Mikey Harrison. So there's a couple of guys that follow him to San Diego State. And I think this is a game that Ashton Jeanty should build on his numbers, right?
Yeah.
It's been I won't say a slow week. I mean, he ran for 100 and something yards and a touchdown, but by his standards, it was a slow week. I think Ashton Jeanty gets back into the fold. Maybe the point spread is a little generous, but I think this is a game, like you said, Boise State should 100% win and have full control over. And I think we get a big Jeanty game here. So anytime you can see Jeanty, it could be a game of the week. So I'm all right with the selection game of the week.
Yeah, but it's a Friday night game. I could see San Diego State traveling to Boise and getting their ass kicked. I could see it, but we'll see what happens. Now let's get to our picks for the week. Locks. Let's start with our locks. I'm going to sit here with my Memphis Tigers -7 at UTSA, and the reason I say that, I think Jeff Traylor, the head coach, his mind is elsewhere right this second. He's been talking about all week how Memphis has 5 times the NIL money that UTSA has. He's just been bitching. He's been complaining. Why are you worried about that? Worry about putting a good product on the field. You haven't been able to do that this year. By the way, Jeff Traylor, you've had opportunities to probably jump from UTSA to go to a different job where there's more NIL money, because you did have some good years there with Frank Harris Jr. and Sincere McCormick and all those guys. So Zachary Franklin. So at the end of the day, I think Memphis actually can cover this week, win by a couple of scores, win by 10 points or so.
I like that. I'm going to go Miami Duke over 54.5, simply because I think Duke can score anywhere between 17 and 20 points. And I fully expect Miami to score anywhere between that 35 to 45 range. They've been pretty consistent scoring that much points. And I believe in Cam Ward. I mean, Cam Ward and Xavier Restrepo alone are going to connect for a couple, in my opinion. So I like that over, especially because I feel like Miami is peaking right now offensively.
All right, now let's get to our shocks. I'm going to go with Arkansas at home versus Ole Miss. I think they match up relatively well, and Arkansas came off a week where they just they threw it on to Mississippi State offensively. They're starting to play a little bit better offensively. Last week, Taylon Green 314, 5 touchdowns through the air. Braylon Russell, their younger running back, their freshman running back, ran for 175. They still got Rashad Dubinion. Taylon Green can use his legs. I think it's a different sort of look for Ole Miss that they haven't quite seen. You just have a lot of very fast, available, solid playmakers on the offensive side, and I think Arkansas can stick in there. Ole Miss has not really shown me what they needed to show me at this point in the year offensively. Jackson Dart and that offense, that offensive line, it's just been sort of lagging behind. So I think they can cover. I think Ole Miss ultimately wins, but I think it'll be a really close game.
I like that. I'm going to go South Carolina +2.5, and this is one that I think is the definition.
I love this one, by the way. Love this one.
I just think that South Carolina's defense is good enough to keep them in the game, and we've seen time and time again, if you go on the road in these tough environments, your defense can bring you to a victory here. So I like South Carolina +2.5 as the shock of the week, and it would be a shock. I'm still going to pick Texas A&M to quote-unquote win the ball game, but this is a great pick for shock of the week in terms of the bet, in my opinion.
Yep. Now let's go ahead and get to a bonus. I'm going to go Ohio State and Penn State under 45. I know some people say, that these offenses can certainly pace themselves and probably get to that number. It's not a high number, But when you look at Penn State's quarterback situation, you had Drew Aller sit out the entire second half. Bo Perbula came in. Ohio State has a good defense. Penn State has a good defense. Ohio State couldn't run the ball against Nebraska. If you can't run the ball against Nebraska, it's going to be pretty tough to run the ball against Penn State. So I think this will be a game where you're running off a lot of clock and it stays pretty low, sort of an old school Big Ten battle. But I'm going to go under the 45 there. We'll see with the quarterback situation with Penn State if that changes my mind, but I'm going to stick with under 45.
I like Pitt SMU over 58.5 simply because both of these offenses have scored pretty much on everybody that they've played. And even in the game last week against Syracuse, there was a lot for Syracuse to take advantage of that Pitt defense. They just threw some untimely, insane interceptions. So I think you'll see a lot of points scored in this one. And I like the 58.5, even though it's definitely a high up there, but it's up there for a reason. I like both of these teams to score a lot of points in this game.
All right, Kai, where they find you?
Find me on Twitter at Kyron Samuels, X, whatever you call it these days. And you have everything else. So just released a couple of pieces for Oregon. Colston Loveland preview. They're playing Michigan this week. So talking about him and a lot of stuff on USC, a lot of NFL stuff as well. So for your NFL fans to tune in, tune into my Twitter and I'll have everything there for you guys. Like, share, subscribe and all that. And thank you guys for tuning in for another episode.
Yep, find me G_Coon71 on Twitter, 92.9 Odyssey app. You know the whole drill, Monday through Friday, 4 to 7. And also make sure that you follow us on Twitter at G5 Classified FB. Again, that's at G5 Classified FB. We post everything from my show to his work to our Heisman hype rankings, our top 5 power rankings in college football. So make sure you follow at G5 Classified FB on Twitter. But that's going to wrap it up for the week. Like, subscribe, share. Go check out everything on the Believe in Bluff City Podcast Network. Go to bluffcitymedia.co and you can go ahead and get all the articles in the podcast there. But we'll go ahead and see you next week.
Thank you for listening to this episode of G5 Classified. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a rating and a review wherever you download your podcasts. To watch this episode, head over to the Bluff City Media YouTube channel. We'll see you back here next week.